So many of you asked, why is there a rock climbing wall in the museum? Well, that's because on the eastern side of Vermont, there's nearly 200 quarries, granite quarries, and only 4 of those are open today and pulling out dimensional block stone for use in monuments, sculptural work, or architectural elements. And so that means these spaces have been play spaces since, for some, mid-19th century. If they're a pit quarry, they generally fill up with snow melt, rainwater, groundwater flowing in, and so kids have been swimming in them for the last 140 years. And if they're hillside quarries, then means the water drains out, but you've got a nice quarry face to climb. And there are going to be cracks and within that bedrock, and for rock climbers, it's just an awesome location to play. And so we introduce the idea of rock climbing to the kids through the wall we have here in the museum. And it's not encouraged, but the kids are going to do it anyways. And a lot of the land is on public lands where you'll find these quarries. So it's either state-owned or municipal-owned forest, and so a lot of folks in the local region, they know about it, and that's where they go and visit. The other thing to do is picnic and watch. You've got peregrine falcons and other birds of prey will nest right on the cliff faces, so it's a great place to go explore that as well.
So how do you determine if a rock is mineable or not?
So we're looking for the quality of the material. So you can find granites all around the globe. Granite is the foundation material of all the continents. And some places it pokes up near the surface. It's an igneous rock. And here we sit on a peloton that's about 4 miles long, 1 mile wide, and 10 miles deep. And it just pushes right up. And as you go into town, headed towards the cemetery today, just look up and you'll see this waste pile of granite on the top of that hill. And so they want fine-grained crystals. They want ones that are hopefully aligned. So think about this pluton or ball of granite. It cooled from the outside towards its core, and so it's like layers of an onion that could be peeled off. And so there's predictability in terms of how you might work that stone. If it's a stone that's been reheated and through mountain building processes, then instead of alignment, you'll find the crystal structures look like this. And there's no predictability as to what's going to happen when you hit it. It could fracture and go in weird directions, but if it's aligned, just like a piece of wood, you can understand exactly how to split it and work that stone. So those are the features we're looking for, as well as a percentage of quartz that's not too high, otherwise it's too hard to work with, but one that's hard enough so that you can use your pneumatic tools or air hammers and be able to break the stone down. And we'll talk about that when we meet Mark next door. So the granite industry here, as I mentioned on the bus, has one that grew into one that reached international recognition because of the quality of stone that we have located right here, 6 miles from this particular building. And there was kind of like a gold rush in the 1880s through the 1940s where everyone wanted to come to town and establish their stake. You could rent or acquire rights to the quarry material below the surface. There was a very thin layer of topsoil. It was terrible farming, but if you could take and scrape that away and go after the stone, you might be able to get lucky and find something that's high quality. And then be able to find a marketable product. This community grew because of this influx of migrants that were coming from Europe, as well as people that are moving from throughout North America to come to make their profit within the granite industry. They came from other stone centers throughout Europe, and also included African Americans that were coming north, starting the 1890s. And one note to make is that the African Americans were fully invested in the unions starting in the 1890s, the first union in North America to allow that to happen. Got paid the same exact wage, and what it did is it created a community where you have 40% of the population is foreign-born, coming from Europe. You have 30% of the population is coming from outside of Vermont. You have 20% of the population that is from Vermont but not from central Vermont and doesn't work necessarily with stone. and then 10% that's from this region. And you create a community that has dozens of different languages, dozens of different cultures, and ultimately they work together. Everybody's different, but they all have something in common. They're working in the granite industry or supporting the granite industry, and that allows them to figure out how to navigate a very unique community within all of North America. Went from a population of 2,000 to a population of 15,500 in a period of 40 years. Hundreds of housing units were being built every single year to accommodate them. And so when you move here, you normally start with a boarding house, and your experience would be that you'd be living in a boarding room with people that speak different languages than you, different religions, different ethnicities, different race, and you ultimately try to work together. And very likely, they're going to become your business partner, your best friends. They're going to be on a baseball team with you. They're going to take and help you navigate as a young man in this community and figure out what you're going to do next. So whether you're going to break out and try to start your own company, rent a small space within a granite shed, and try to create a new product and bring your expertise to what you do. And so in that way, Barrie's been a very unique town. You've got socialists, anarchists, Democrats, communists, and all of them are trying to navigate the world during this period. And intermarriages ultimately bring it all together. So, and there's kids too. Huh?
You have much of that?
In terms of intermarriages? Yes, within this community. And so we'll see that when we go up to Hope Cemetery. In terms of who's buried where, look at the names on the stones, and you've got Italians marrying French Canadians, you've got Spanish marrying Germans, Poles, Greeks, and they're all coming together. And it's partly because the fact that you have the children are all going to the same school system. So they're bringing home English, and they're bringing home an understanding of what it means to be part of a team. So it's kind of unique.
What's your Native American population like?
So Native American population here in New England is decimated because of the war. So French and Indian War, Revolutionary War, War of 1812 pushes the Abenaki northward, and most of the Abenaki lived in Quebec, right along the San Francisco River. But throughout the 19th century, they continued to come back to their homeland by doing this annual cycle, going from the San Francisco River near the St. Lawrence Valley, and then coming into Vermont, New Hampshire, and circling around, collecting resources, connecting to the land that was part of their heritage, and then returning back.
So they're a transient population? Is that what you're saying?
So they are, during the 19th century, largely moving. Some of them will eventually stay back within their homeland, but they're being pushed northward because of all those conflicts during the late 18th and early 19th century. Well, come with me and we'll talk to Mark. So what we're going to do is walk through
I'm
the
going to stand
process.
back here and you do this. Okay.
So this room here is our studio space at the museum where we teach the next generation on how to design and sculpt in granite and other stones. Each year we have high school students, college students that come to us. It's been a mix of both formal courses and then informal relationships that we build with people who have a real passion for becoming an artist in stone. These are the active artists. These are the professionals. They range in age from 83 to 41. And so we've got a problem. We've got a big gap. We don't have the 20 and 30 somethings that are working in the industry. The average age, if you took all of our sculptors, probably pushes close to 60, 65. and our oldest sculptor, Giuliano Ceccanelli, still is working a 40-hour work week at 83. He loves what he does, and he's been doing it since age 10, since age 16 professionally, and so many of these artists have been wanting to hand down the tradition to the next generation. And then in comes Mark. I'll let him explain how he arrives here.
So my name is Mark Padlow. Last summer I moved up to Vermont to learn about carving granite and to try to get into the granite industry. And I didn't have any promising leads. I didn't know anybody, and I was just kind of rolling the dice. And I got lucky, and I found a man named George Krajanowicz who was about to retire. And when I walked into his office, he pulled out a chair and said, "Sit down, we need to talk." And so now I'm still working with George. I made it through the winter, and we're rolling forward. So we're going to talk to you about the process of carving granite, going from a raw block to a finished product, and how this starts by making a model. If you want to go someplace, you need a roadmap. You need to know where you're going.
Yeah.
And this is going to guide you in the enlarging process. So you start small, you work out any problems, potential problems in your design, and then you start scaling it up, which begins by finding boss points on your rock, and then finding a center point so you can measure accurately from your model, and then take those measurements using these calipers and enlarge them, put them on your rock. So these boss points, right. So this is these points. This is your guideline. This is what's going to get you through the whole carving process, to find out where your ears are and where your all your important elements of your carving are going to be. So from there, you start off on mass removal. You've got a lot of extra stone here you got to get out of your way. You do that by drilling holes and taking called a feather and wedge and putting those into the holes that you drilled. And you can see on this block there's several drill holes in here. So you drill those holes, you put that in there, smack them in there, and you get big chunks of rock that come off of there. It gets you closer. Your next step is you take this angle grinder with an industrial diamond wheel on here, and you start making cuts. Maybe 1/2 inch apart. You start knocking those off with a hammer. So the goal is to get within about 1/8 inch of your finished surface. So you do that by taking a pneumatic hammer and a chisel and just taking all that excess material down. And you can see the difference between here and here is not much. However, the time and effort that you spent right here, you're going to spend just as much, if not more, right here.
Really?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of things to watch out for. You've got ears, things that could be potentially easy to knock off.
Yeah.
You have to send your the hammer blows, your energy into the mass of the stone. If you put that up against something going to the outside of the stone, there's a high potential for losing it. So this is the point where you start dialing all your details. You're going to find some polish on the nose, maybe on the paws here, and start getting some hair in there, and really creating the illusion of life. At which point you get into some smaller tools and some careful looking study.